So that's what we've launched. The cool piece though is what we figured out is that we're creating this as a service for the manufacturer. So what happens is the manufacturer logs into our site, and then they can basically control the messages they want to give to the app, which is on your phone, that interfaces to the actual products set on the shelves. So now every product can become a billboard. Every product can become an interface to the consumer, which is a very powerful thing to do. And nobody's actually, what we found, nobody's been able to do that. And then we've created a business model around that. So, and I'll talk a little bit about that, but basically that business model is around, just like when you do a Google search, what we're going to do is charge on a per scan basis. So when somebody holds this up and they scan it, we collect a few cents off of that scan. Just like Google collects a few cents when you actually click on a sponsored ad. And that's kind of the principle behind the business. So the models, so when we went up there to meet with Arizona Beverage, that was one of the things I wanted to find out. Would they, number one, pay for this service? Number two, would they pay for it per click or per scan? Would they pay me a fee to host all this information for them in the cloud? And the answer was yes. So the Arizona Beverage was absolutely a big sale. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'm just lucky. Next day, you ever heard of Apple and Eve? Not Adam and Eve, but Apple and Eve. Apple and Eve does these things called fruitables, and they have these juices. And the fruitables are basically for kids. They're a little more healthy. They have basically a fruit and vegetable combined, and they put this in a container and sell it. They're in Walmarts all over. So we go in the next day. So I'm feeling pretty high from the first day. So we go in the next day to the founder there, which his name is Gordon Crane, and we present to Gordon, and Gordon looks at this, and he just absolutely loves it. He basically just says, this is absolutely awesome. We want to work with you. We want to be the company that helps you get this out into the marketplace. So, wow, 2 data points, and that was very good. So I came back and did a 3rd data point with a company that builds a health product. They loved it. They loved the concept. And now we've talked to 2 more companies that basically, one's in the toothpaste business and one is in the beef jerky business, and they love the concept. Because what we're finding is manufacturers want to connect with you when you're trying to make a decision. So one of the things we've been able to do is actually, through 3 or 4, now 5 potential customers, is I think create an environment where I think we can create a real company. So, right now we haven't even gone out and tried to raise any funding or anything. Right now I'm just kind of been self-funding, and we've been doing it through equity. But eventually we will want to go out and actually raise some money to actually carry it to the next level. But it looks like to me we're probably going to have some deals here, within another few weeks, because we're going back to. We got a call tomorrow with Apple and Eve to go through their proposal. We got a proposal already into Arizona. They want us to come back towards October 12th or 15th to try to negotiate that out. And we've got another proposal to a company called NFI that they want to negotiate. So it's moving a lot faster than we anticipated. So the reason I tell you that story is because there's a lot that made up that. Because there's a lot of people doing augmented reality. There's a lot of people trying to do QR codes. But we're doing some things which I can't really tell you about because the patent's just in the process right now. But we're doing some things that are really clever with the scanning of the product and how it can be used not only while you're there looking at it, but when you get home, all kind of things around games and loyalty programs. And I would not have been able to do that if I hadn't gone back and started connecting the dots. So I want you to think about everyone in here, when the end of the year comes, the end of next year, probably 1 or 2 of you will go out and start a company, but the rest of you are probably going to go out and get jobs. I mean, you asked a great question, do you go out and get jobs? Well, the thing is that what Dr. Miller and his team is doing is they're giving you guys a foundation, and they're giving you guys skills to be entrepreneurs. So if you don't start a company right today or when you graduate, that's not a big deal, because whether it's a year from now or 5 years from now, you're going to be able to look at your life and look at your career, and you're going to find little dots along the way that you can start putting together. Because I can tell you this, in 20 years, everybody in this room here will be an entrepreneur. Everybody in this room will probably started their company in 20 years from now. But it may not be what you think it's going to be about. It may be totally something different. And your dots along your career is going to tell you that. So I'm going to dig just a little bit across these dots for me. 6 years old. When did I know I was an entrepreneur? Well, I don't know if you ever really know, but I tell you one thing happens is when I was 6, it's when Pringles potato chips was developed. Now, I don't know if you know. Everybody know Pringle potato chips? Everybody know Pringles? Okay, Pringles is a great thing for an entrepreneur. Why? Because they're stackable potato chips. Okay? When you got stackable potato chips, you can take them to school and sell them. My mom could not figure out how I could eat so many Pringles potato chips. But I was taking those babies to school and selling them for a penny or 2 pennies a piece. Because the other kids were trying to eat this crap that was in the cafeteria, and they loved these potato chips, right? So I just collected these pennies off of these Pringles potato chips. In high school, I basically, and all along the path, from the time I was 6 years old in high school, I grew up on a farm. Okay, I'm just a poor country boy. You know, when I was 5 years old, 6 years old, my dad gave me a half acre of tobacco, and that was my half acre, and whatever I made off of that was mine. You know, if I had to pay people to work it, I took that money and had to pay them. By the time I finished high school, you know, I had 3 or 4 acres of my own, and I was making $25,000, $30,000 as a kid going off to college. And that's a lot of money for a little kid. But the thing was, my dad really gave me the chance to be an entrepreneur as a farmer. So you don't think about farmers sometimes as entrepreneurs, but they really are entrepreneurs. I mean, they are entrepreneurs. So, but I took an electronics class in high school, and that electronics class got me to go into electrical engineering and do a lot of computer science. So I took my degrees in electrical engineering, but I took a ton of computer science courses. I may even have enough for mine, I don't know. But I took a bunch of computer science courses. And that's what I kind of did here at State. Now, I'll tell you a little cool thing at State. I lived on the 10th floor at Sullivan. So if you know where Sullivan is, the 10th floor. Now, I don't know what it is now, but when I was there, the elevators did not work. 50% of the time, the elevators did not work. I'm on the 10th floor. I saw an opportunity. Kids love soft drinks. My mom couldn't figure out how I could drink so many soft drinks. So every 2 weeks, I would go home and I would get cases of soft drinks and bring them back to my dorm room because the kids would come and pay me $1 or $2 for these soft drinks so they wouldn't have to walk all the way downstairs because the only drinks were on the first floor. So I'd make, you know, 20, 30 bucks every couple of weeks, right? Well, for a poor kid, that's a lot of money when you're in college. So, you know, the whole thing here is this here, what I'm telling you all this is about sales. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you've got to kind of be able to sell yourself. You've got to be able to sell your product. You've got to be able to sell your company. So you need to be thinking about how you can put the face on whatever it is you're doing and how you brand it. So I did not start a company coming out. When I was going here, there was no such thing as an entrepreneur program. I didn't even know what probably couldn't even spell it. And so I went to work for a company called Bell Northern Research, which was the research division for Northern Telecom. It's kind of like, if you ever heard of Bell Labs, it's kind of similar to the sister Bell Labs. What I learned here was all about building large software projects and systems. The last project I had there was there for 10 years, 11 years almost, because I had 500 engineers on one project that we were delivering. So I really learned how to build high quality, big system, big scale projects, which added a lot of value along that. But I also started this little company called Real Wood Furniture. I started in 1990, and it's really funny. We started it, and 2 months after we started it, the bottom fell out. So the first 2 months we opened the door, we made a profit. I think we made a profit like maybe $1,500, $2,000 profit each of the first 2 months. And then that's when 91, 92 is when we had another recession. That's probably when you guys were born. And basically, it just didn't go from there. So we kept it open a couple of years and we ended up selling it. But the fact is that I learned a lot about starting a company. I never will forget, I went to the bank and I sat in the bank and I wanted to borrow $20,000, right? And I'm talking to the banker and I'm like, I just wanted to borrow $20,000. Now I look back at that now and realize how funny that looked. But at the time, $20,000 was a lot of money. But we borrowed the money. We built the business. We actually were able to pay it back, which was good, but it wasn't any kind of big success. So I left B&R in doing telecommunications and software and went to a startup division called Allen Telecom, which is where we were building digital base stations and building mobile, what's called repeaters and so forth. So what I learned out of this company for 3 years is I really learned about the mobile space. I really learned how phones work. I really learned how phones communicated with cell towers and how the base stations and stuff work. So I learned all that kind of technology, which helps me launch this company called Product Broadcasting, which we'll talk about in a minute. So I stayed there for 3 years, come back. I joined now Tave. Tave has just gone through its seed round, and they're just in the process of raising $4 million. So I joined those guys in 2001. And what I learned here at Tave is all about how to interface into the enterprise space. So we would sell into banks, we would sell into manufacturing companies, we would sell into government agencies, anybody who's basically on the enterprise side. So I really started understanding how to build software and sell it into the enterprise space. And that was really good. Now, while I was doing that, I bought a florist. So my, which is now my ex-wife, she wanted a business, so we bought this florist. It was RTP Florist. It was one of the top 5 single store, highest producing florists on the East Coast that we took it to by 2003 or 2004. We were doing $600,000 out of this shack that was literally 1,500 square feet. Nobody would ever guess. The average florist at that time was doing about $227,000. And we were doing almost, I think that one year we hit like 625 or 635. So this was a great business, but ended up actually selling it. And then I started something called Goins Custom Builders, which we were building homes in Pinehurst. We had somebody else running it in Pinehurst for basically high-end class. A lot of people building $1 million, $2 million homes for second homes. So we started that. And then basically along this path with Tabe, I ended up going to Silicon Valley. And I started spending a lot of time in the last 2.5 years in Silicon Valley because I really wanted to understand their ecosystems. Because one of the things I wanted to do here at State is launch this thing called WIF Ventures. Okay, and WIF Ventures is all about investing in people coming out of NC State or associated with NC State. So I got all excited about that, but then I figured like, oh my gosh, I got to figure out what is this all about? So I started going to Silicon Valley and trying to get into their ecosystem out there and understand it. Well, one of the first things that I realized going out to Silicon Valley is that there are 400,000 engineers in Silicon Valley. There are 40,000 engineers in RTP. So the scale is 10 times what it is here. And when you got the scale of 10 times of something, you can create a much bigger ecosystem. And that became pretty clear to me that that's a driving factor out there. Last thing here is before we get into my kindreds, is something my wife and I launched with a lady, which some of you guys met out in Silicon Valley. It's a social networking site that basically brings people and friendships together and connects them. We kind of floundered around with that until we figured out that it's actually churches, mega churches is where this is really, I think, going to be able to really do well. Because in mega churches, and mega churches are defined as 2,000 or more attendees, basically you've got about 65% of the people that go to a mega church, and this has been studies now, 65% of the people say they have no close friendships at the church they go to. And one of the #1 objectives by most mega churches is for people to connect. So we're doing our first pilot with a church over here in North Raleigh that's got about 4,500 members, and my wife is she's running most of that. But what happened is we created this. So I'm telling you all this because to create this company called Product Broadcasting, I kind of had to go back and pull from a lot of different things. One is I got to be on the sales side, right? I got to be out there selling to people about what this is. I've got to go in and talk to these CEOs and these business development guys. You know, I learned here from my engineering degree that, you know, my belief is if you can go through any kind of engineering, get an engineering degree, you can do anything. There is nothing you can't do, right? If you can suck it up and get through an engineering program, man, there is nothing I can't do. I remember when I went to MBA school, and I'm sitting there, right, there's probably out of 45 in the class, maybe like 3 or 4 engineers, and I'm sitting there laughing, right? People think this is work. This is not working, man. You go to engineering school, you don't work either. But here I learned how to do software development. Here I learned all about the enterprise space. Here I learned with the florists and Sport Clips. I didn't even mention Sport Clips. Sport Clips is a men and boys hair salon. We were the first guys to roll those out in Raleigh, and we've sold them. We sold them in 2007. But essentially what I did is here I learned about how to interface to the consumer. So now when I think about product broadcasting, I understand the consumer angle. So I'm trying to think from a consumer side. What does a consumer need? They need information, right? And then basically, you know, from my kindred's perspective, we've got a social aspect, which I really can talk about, but we have a social aspect in that same technology. So all I'm trying to say is that and I can talk a lot more about this when it's not on camera, but when I think about product broadcasting, I would have never come up with this very unique solution that we've come up with if I had not have been able to connect all those dots along the way. So as you go through your career, you start thinking about the dots. And the dots can be events, dots can be segments of time, dots can be people. You're gonna have all these little dots along the way. And those are going to be the ones that will help you one day to launch your company. Questions?
We're actually going to turn the camera off now so we can have the real conversation.